Yeah. So I'm doing this for a friend of mine, Sean. He's running a campaign called Silentsigns, breaking the silence. And it refers to, I am looking down at this here, by the way. And it's about overcoming the issues of invisible disabilities. Disabilities, I think, for years have been viewed incorrectly. It's very obvious to make judgment against someone with a disability we can see straight away. So an amputee, for example, clearly disabled. But there are a lot of disabilities. There are a lot of disabilities that we don't see, such as anxiety, panic attacks from anxiety, all sorts, bipolar mental instability. So it can be very difficult when you suffer from an invisible disability. I'm going to end up saying that way too much. It can be very difficult to relay to other people how you're feeling about your emotions and your ill health in that respective point. Anyway, so I've got some questions here. I will ad hoc them, and then later on now we'll do question and answer because there's too many. So my name's Luke. I'm 26. I work on wind farms, relatively small boats. We do crew transferring offshore, so we take technicians from shore out to the wind farm and tools and equipment, things that they need. It's a very peculiar industry because you spend 3 weeks away from your home, or 21 days, sometimes longer, sometimes less. It's usually more. And you have to live with one or two other people in essentially what's like a large caravan. It's a really small space. And if you don't gel with the person you have to live with, it can be difficult, it can be very tough. Especially if you suffer from an invisible disability. So, I have an invisible disability for sure. I suffer anxiety really badly. It's hard to talk about that because it's not something that is easily described. It affects everyone differently. A friend of mine suffers anxiety really, really badly for weeks on end. He ends up not being able to work, all sorts. And I mean literal friend of mine, not my friend, like you get in the films. But I suffer anxiety. It sends me completely off the rails. I get complete mental instability. It affects my decision making. It affects my mood. I become quite bipolar. People who know me will be aware that I can be on and off, very on and off with how I feel about things. It's not great. But they all stand by me, so that's fine. It really affects my thought processes. What would seem like a rational reaction to something can become... I can make completely irrational decisions on that, and it's not great really, because there becomes a paranoia. I suffer a paranoia with it. You know, have I done the right thing? Have I not? And I get really uptight and tense, and I just want to push everything out, crawl into a hole, and don't want to face the world. It really can be that bad. I don't want to leave the house. I don't want to see anyone, speak to anyone. I don't want to answer my phone. And that can go on like that. And it can be very difficult to deal with. A lot of people who don't understand that kind of mental disability, they kind of like, oh, man up, Luke. You know, take a spoonful of sugar. Medicine. Sugar, medicine, anyway. It can be very difficult. So they don't see that as an effect on my ability to function and make decisions. And it can be really, really menial decisions like, do I want a cup of tea or do I want a coffee? And it can completely roller coaster. You can be, well, if I have a coffee, I might feel worse. But if I have a tea, I need a coffee, I've got to do this. I want to function, I need the caffeine. Do I have it black? Do I have it white? And when I'm suffering this particular illness, Yeah, making a cup of tea can be really complicated, and it's just hard work. It's very tiring. And people don't really understand that it can affect just such simple tasks of what I want to eat and drink. It's really not great. Do I see it as a disability? So, yes, I do. Do others see it as a disability? No, it's an invisible disability, hence the point of this campaign. I feel that it's really, really not respected. I think, for me, if you want a personal anecdote as such, when I started suffering from anxiety, I went through a really, really rough time with my partner, and I tried to explain, and because I was suffering anxiety, I couldn't explain clearly how I felt or how I was feeling and how these things were affecting me. We went through, it was a tough time for us. She struggled to understand, which in turn made me feel, it's a very inward thought process. It's very self-destructive. You feel that you are the one that isn't performing correctly and everyone else is, and you're letting them down by not being able to communicate effectively. And that became a real issue for me that she didn't understand, because I was blaming myself for not being able to tell her how I felt clearly. And this is my best friend, I should be able to tell her how I'm feeling. So that was really difficult. I think she gets it now, but she also helped me overcome my disability, overcome the anxiety, and without her now I wouldn't be able to get through making tea or coffee. So there you go. Thank you very much, Kathy. Does it impact my day-to-day life? Yeah, I've touched this briefly. When it's bad, yes. When it's not, no. Again, it's not such an obvious thing to suffer from. So as I said, it can affect really small tasks. It can affect really big tasks. And it's the decision making and the thought processes behind the decisions, the justification of what it is you're doing. That's what can be very difficult. So, yeah, it affects your day-to-day life. So, do I have a safe place was where I got to. Yes, yeah, I do. It really is in my own mind. It has to be. I work away from home. I work different boats, different people every time I travel. I have no set foundations to come back to every night. So I have to take my safe place with me. I can't. When I suffer from anxiety, I've got to be able to deal with it no matter where I am, whether it's an airport, train station, boat, turbine, jack-up ship in the middle of the sea. I have to be able, I haven't had breakfast yet. I have to be able to deal with my disabilities myself, and because you can be damn sure no one else knows that it's going on. So my safe place is my own noggin. Yeah. I take 10 minutes a day, every day. Normally when I'm waking up, I just lie in bed and I just collect my feelings from whether I've remembered my dreams, but I collect my feelings from my thoughts the night before, from the day, what I need to achieve and accomplish that day. It was the small goals that allowed me to realise how to deal with my anxiety, not overcome it. You can't get rid of it. It just comes back where it goes. But it was to deal with my anxiety. So it was my partner that came up with it. She came up with this daily photo challenge for me. And I was really into my photography at the time. I've got it here. And at the time, my job was different. 2 seconds. So at the time, my job was different. I was self-employed, running a small business. And daily achievements, I had no guidance, no boss, no mentor, no one to tell me what to do. And that was difficult. It blurred the lines of whether I was doing things correctly, and the self-gratification didn't exist because, as I said earlier, it's a destructive mental state. You always blame yourself for everything, and you can't overcome that. So, I mean, I did it for 40 days. Here's some pictures, and it was about just having small goals. These were taken daily for 41 days. I don't even know if you can see them. And it was just. I definitely achieved them every day. That's what that's telling me. And it was just making sure that at the end of every day I had accomplished something that I was proud of and I could put my name to. And in turn, my photography improved, I hope. 2 seconds. So you've got to learn to travel with your safe space. For me, anyway. For some people, it might be their house, their home, where they live, what they want to do, so on and so forth. That's the nature of it. I collect my thoughts and feelings, what I need to achieve, what I want to accomplish, and that allows me to start my day at least on the right foot. I can't guarantee that as the day progresses, something might change. I might make a mistake that will give me the verge of a panic attack. It's impossible to say, but at least by collecting my thoughts, I know how I need to move on with that day. If I then find myself suffering, 2 things either happen. I either deal with it, I take another couple of minutes to myself, and the day takes quite a while if you have to keep doing this. I take another couple of minutes to myself, whether it's a cup of tea, sit outside in the sun, just find somewhere calm that I can just enjoy where I am and what I'm doing and relax in that moment to progress and carry on with the day. Or I self-pity, and I wallow in it, and I don't want to get better, and I want to be miserable, and I want to stay at home in my pants and play PlayStation and shoot some rebel scum on Star Wars or something like that. But I'm never at home to do that, so I've got to get with it. Sorry about the question and answers, but I explained that earlier. Could you ever see your place of work to be that safe place? If not, why not? Personally, yes, it has to be. You can't function with any sort of mental instability. You can't make decisions that will allow you to progress effectively in your workplace. You have to be able to deal with it. If you can't deal with it at work, then find somewhere, find a cafe, find a bathroom, sit in your car with the radio on, whatever it is for you that brings you a sense of achievement and tranquility and mental rest, where you can just turn off for a couple of minutes, be happy with what you're doing, collect your thoughts and carry on again. And if you can't do that at work, whether maybe you drive a bus, there's no ability for you to, then that's difficult, and that's a really real shame for people who suffer, because I feel that then they will struggle, or maybe they do, maybe they don't. I'd be interested to know how other people deal with their anxiety. This is personal to me, but I feel that if I can't gather my thoughts, because it has to be with me, my safe place has to be with me. I can't come home, put my slippers on, put my dressing gown on, stroke the dog and smoke a pipe in front of the fire. I don't have that ability yet. One day it'll be a red leather chair. What is a comfort for you? What is a comfort for me? People that understand and support me wholeheartedly. Definitely. I surround myself with people that I know understand how I feel and what I'm suffering. And if I'm not able to explain or express my feelings effectively that day, then at least have people that may recognise the signs, albeit they're subtle, I guess, that I'm not completely myself that day or in that moment, and appreciate that, because they know what I've been through before and allow me to deal with them in my own way, or help me. Yeah. So, are you employed? Yes, I'm employed. I work offshore on wind farms, and I explained that earlier in these videos. How do you feel in the working environment? If I'm not completely busy, awful. It's very difficult when you're kind of twiddling your thumbs. Someone said to me on my last trip that the definition of offshore is waiting is right. And it is actually being idle that allows your mind to run riot for me. And that's when I would start to suffer the most, is when I'm not actually doing anything. That's just so keeping busy, achieving small goals. That's how I get through my day. So, yeah, that's how I feel in my working environment. It's an awful working environment. Don't ever do it. Have you experienced negative comments regarding your condition? Yes, I think I touched on that earlier. When I first started suffering, my partner didn't understand. She didn't understand what it was that I was going through and I was feeling. I couldn't express it, and I almost blamed her for it, not being able to understand, and that's not cool. The irony of that is not long after that she started suffering panic attacks, and after calming her down from a panic attack, I said, that's how I feel on a daily basis when I'm suffering, not all the time. What would you change if you were the employer? I think for me, and again this is personal because of how I deal with this disability, for me, just being able to have 5-10 minute break every couple of hours. A few years ago, smoking, you were allowed legally to have a 10-minute break, I think it was, if you smoked, every hour. And that should be allowed, I think. You should be allowed to just be like, hang on, Steve, I'm making a cup of tea. I'm having 5 minutes to myself. It's better for you, Mr. Steve, because I'm not performing very well and you're paying me to perform. If I don't have 5-10 minutes to sort myself out, then I'm not going to achieve the tasks you set for me today effectively. And time is money, Mr. Steve. So I think it should be a thing. It should be allowed. We should be allowed to have short breaks if we feel necessary to, without being judged. It's the expectation to perform that makes people suffer. And as I said, it's an inward spiral. You're not performing. You suffer mentally from you don't think you're doing a good enough job. And your performance just gets worse. Therefore, you worry more. The anxiety increases. Bish, bosh, bang. You are where you are. What questions should I ask you about your disability? I would like to know how other people deal with disabilities, mental disabilities that affect their performance. Anxiety is definitely a thing. It leads to depression, most definitely. I want to know where your safe place is and how you deal with that. So I wish you the best of luck on your endeavours. I really hope Sean nails this campaign. I'm supporting him all the way. It's a real thing. It's a real disability. People don't see them, therefore they assume that they're perfectly fine. Don't judge a book by its cover. Cheers.